I did my BTech from in Electronics and Communication Engineering from NIT Hamirpur. I'm basically from Solan, and this year in CAT 2020, I scored 99.99 percentile. So the breakdown of my percentile was as follows. I got 99.98 in VARC, 99.87 in DILR, and 99.69 in Quant.
What was your total approach when, if you talk about CAT? So, what was your total approach when you were preparing for CAT 2020? Because as I saw that, I think you prepared for CAT 2019 as well, right? And you scored a great percentile in that also, like a 99 percentile. So basically, what basically motivated you to get in CAT 2020 also, and what was your holistic approach for that?
Okay, so when I appeared for CAT 2019, it was actually like my first attempt and it was an unprepared attempt. So when I saw that I scored well in that, I realized that I should give it one proper attempt, like preparing well for it and then going ahead. Since I thought that my baseline itself was quite good in my opinion, so I thought I should improve on that. My strategy was very simple. I need to keep my strengths strong, and I need to focus on all my weak areas and make sure that I can get brownie points wherever possible. So how I used to prepare basically was I used to revise all topics that I knew were very strong for me. So that I did with the help of like practice tests. There are many tests online available for CAT. Doing some previous year question papers and stuff. So I realized that there were some topics which I was very good at. There were some topics which I was weaker at. So my focus up after that was to keep practicing my stronger topics and study the weaker topics sufficient enough so that I can tackle all basic questions regarding those topics when if they come in the exam. I was the strategy was that in the exam, in case I get a very hard question from one of my weaker topics, I'm simply going to let it go and go ahead with the other questions and only look at it at the very end in case I have time left for like it at the end, which is like one in a million odds thing. So yeah, that is how I focused. I practiced quite a lot. And that I think is key to cracking CAT. For engineers, I would say engineers hold a slight edge in CAT because we've been studying all these topics since like in 11th and 12th as well. So geometry, for example, and kinematics. So these are topics which you've studied in 11th and 12th. So and that's where we hold a slight edge over the competition, but still we need to revise it properly and make sure that we do not commit any silly mistakes at places. So for quant, I was weaker at topics like logarithms and like topics like kinematics, ratio and proportion were very strong for me. So that is how I prepared for it. These questions I would like these ratio and proportion, kinematics, etc. Work like time and work. These type of topics I usually just practiced more and more test papers and made sure that I did all questions that I knew that I should be able to do. So that was mainly based on practice. I did not hamper with their strategy too much. Did not cram a lot of formulas, did not try to get to learn, any fancy methods or something, just stuck to the basics for these. As for my weaker sections like logarithms, for example, I went through all the basic formulae, be it geometry, for example. We know that most questions can be tackled by the right angle triangle formula, the Pythagorean, Pythagoras theorem. So that's what I focus on. That I'll stick to the basics. Whatever I can solve, I'll do that. In case there is any question which I am unable to solve directly using my knowledge, I'll simply leave it out. I won't even bother trying it out till the very end. So logarithms and all, there were some very easy questions in CAT 2020. So those I was able to do quickly because the like a single formula was sufficient for those questions. So yeah, that I think is what gave me the edge this time over last year's attempt because the weaker topics were now strong enough to get some more marks from those. So actually, VARC has been a strong suit of mine since the very beginning, and that I would give credit to my reading habits since school. And that is what I recommend to anybody who's preparing for VARC as well. There is no other alternative. You should read as much as you can without fail, and you should be able to do very well in VARC. VARC is not something that you can cram and learn. It's not like Quant that there is a deterministic thing. more of a intuitive thing. You need to know, you need to develop an intuition for knowing what answer can be correct, what answer options can be easily eliminated. That is not something you can simply memorize a formula about or something like that. There's no method as such for doing questions in VARC. It requires extensive practice, and there is no better way of doing that than reading books, reading newspapers, etc. You should practice a lot of passages, unseen passages and stuff. That I think, like in CBSE, that is there in the syllabus till class 12. We get reading sections, and that if we practice 12th level English itself well, that is very helpful for VARC in my opinion. Verbal ability was actually a tad weaker for me as well, so I came up with some strategies. If you look online, many people have shared their experience for VARC, like for parajumble questions, for example. There are so many methods, like to identify what is the first sentence going to be, like how you should build a paragraph. Again, when you read books, you realize how they structure paragraphs. If you read any non-fiction books, they help in this regard very well. You'll read paragraphs over there, you'll realize. So like for example, if I were to say a parajumble question is there, it will always start with an introduction, then there's going to be a slight explanation and a conclusion. The very basic paragraph structure is this. So that is what we need to look for. It is again based on practice, a little intuitive. Things like sentences starting with but, however, hence, these we can eliminate initially as the first sentence. Once you identify the first sentence in these, it's fairly simple. And I feel one advantage in verbal ability is that there is no negative marking in most of the questions except for maybe the summary questions. So we can afford to take risks over here. If we have time, we can afford to try out all questions over here, at least attempt them good. Even if it goes wrong, it's not going to hamper us a lot. So yeah, one thing is that we do not need to be very very sure about our answers over here, since there's going to be no negative marking. As for summary questions, summary writing is again something. See, that's what I told. VARC is something that is going to be very intuitive, and you need to practice for it. There is no other way. There is no shortcut to VARC. So reading and practicing is key over there. So if I were to say DILR, in DI was good for me. LR, my personal, I was a little bit weaker at DILR myself. So again, DILR requires the most basic knowledge of mathematics to do. You just need to know percentages and stuff for DILR, nothing more than that. Then there are going to be questions like Venn diagrams and stuff, which you can do easily after attempting one or two sample cases of the same. The good thing about DALR is that there are a limited number of cases, and there are going to be permutations and combinations of the same. You might get one situation clubbed with the other, but eventually it is going to be something that can be practiced and mastered. Like DI, for example, is going to be like you need to fill out a table. So if you practice it once or twice, you can do that easily. Similarly for LR, there are questions on maxima and minima. You need to practice 3-4 sets before you get the hang of it. Okay, this is how I need to approach these questions. So slowly and slowly you'll see that your speed is improving. Now you're able to tackle more questions. One thing that is key is you need to make sure that you do not do any silly mistakes in DILR, because one mistake at a single point can get the entire set wrong, and that is something that we need to avoid at all costs. So that is where the knowledge of basic mathematics is key. You need to be quick with multiplication, division, and addition, subtraction, all that. And you need to make sure that you do not spend too much time on a single set. You need to measure your time properly to make sure that you can do, you need quantity over quality over here. It's not like you have to solve the hardest set. If you can solve 3 easy sets in the same number of, same amount of time, that is where you're better off. So question selection will be key over here, and with a little practice, I think a DILR is not something that is very challenging to do, since the num- uh, uh, cases, the different kind of cases are very limited. You know that there's going to be questions on Venn diagrams, 3-set problems, or even like this year in slot 1 there was the most basic 4-set problem. That was something that could have been tackled by anyone who had practiced like 1 or 2 sets of 4-set problems. So just cover all bases, and the questions that appear a lot, you need to practice them. DILR is that one place where maths is going to help you out. Your knowledge of mathematics, doing calculations on your fingertips, is going to give you the edge over the competition. I definitely agree with this, and I find it logical as well. See, that is what I said. When it comes to quant, engineers hold an edge because that is something we've studied, but that is not how like global entrance exams are. They focus they are at a level where everybody can attempt them at the same level. It's solely based on how much you can prepare for it. It's not like you can have an edge from the very beginning of things. Plus, like I think it is good that there is a focus on verbal, especially for a management exam, because decision making and stuff is something that you always need to have if you want to pursue an MBA. So in my opinion, that is a good thing that they're making the verbal section, more of a not just a verbal and reading section, but more of a decision making session as well. That is definitely positive in my opinion, because it forces you to utilize your brain and just not look for answers blindly in the passage, but rather go through it properly, use your analytical brain. So that is a positive change in my opinion. A focus on mathematics, you should know the basics of mathematics, that is paramount. But as a manager, what you're going to really benefit from is going to be like how you communicate with people, how you analyze situations. So yeah, I think that this is actually a positive change. Okay, so what I would say is one thing is that CAT is an exam that you need to give with the calmest of minds. You should not be under pressure in the exam hall, because the time constraints that there is, the number of questions that you need to attempt, you cannot afford to lose time to nervousness. So you should go over there with an absolute blank slate of a mind, have no thoughts in your mind except for solving the next question that comes in front of you on the screen, taking a decision on it. So that is key. You need to make sure that in an exam hall, you never get panicked no matter what the question pattern is. This is something we saw this year, that the entire exam pattern was unexpected. All we knew was that an hour was going to reduce from the time, but we did not know how many questions were going to there in each section. This time in quant, the pattern for like slot one especially was quite different from previous years. There were hardly any geometry questions. There was a lot of arithmetic, lot of algebra. So that is not something that should certainly get you into a corner. It is something that you should know how to handle. It's always need to remember that if the exam is hard for you, it is probably hard for everybody. So and cat is going to be relative. Like the percentiles are always going to be relative. So it's not like if you do bad in it, that everybody else did well than you. It could also be that the exam itself was so hard that you might actually be the best performer out of everybody. It's all about the mindset in the exam hall. As for preparation, as I said, practice is key. Do keep on practicing. I would say practice as many tests as you can. Try to recreate an exam hall like situation at your place, and do previous year question papers. There's lots of mock tests online available. You can try those out. Just keep on practicing. Stay in touch with all your topics. It should not be like you suddenly start focusing on one particular topic and in that lose sight of your stronger areas. That is not something you can how I would practice is, in like on Saturdays I would practice all my weaker areas, and on Sunday I would give a mock test to make sure that I have learned something new. And then throughout the week, in whatever little time I had, I would try to revise whatever I can. So in that sense, I would stay in touch with all my previous topics as well as gain new topics, like knowledge, basic knowledge of my newer topics as well. So that is what you need to keep sight of, that you need to be a jack of all over here. A master of one strategy does not work well in cat. So make sure that you have all your bases covered. It's not very difficult. There's lots of material available online, especially when I say for quant and DILR, since maths is never going to change. Maths is always going to be, it's deterministic. Maths is maths. One formula is going to be constant throughout, no matter what books you follow. So it's just that you need to practice it enough to know that, to make sure that you remember that in the exam hall. As for verbal, newspaper reading and like reading other things for VARC is a good enough strategy. And again, practice is key over there as well. You can follow any set of books whatsoever. Like there's the most basic books by Arun Sharma sir for quant and DILR. Those do wonders. Those are very great books. You can follow those. And even if you do not want to follow a particular set of books, you can always find topic related formulas online and then practice whatever questions you can find online. That should be good enough for for cat. Yeah, sometimes especially since the lockdown, the pressure definitely gets to your head, since you're all alone at your room sitting, you're working and then you're studying. Becomes a monotonous routine. It tends to get to your head a bit. So hobbies are definitely your your best friend over here. and I would recommend everyone to get some hobby or the other. It could be as simple as singing or playing a musical instrument, going to the gym, just exercising at your home, anything, any sort of hobby. Just have a space where you can get away from all studies and all everything related to it. Shut your brain off and just enjoy your time. It can be anything that gives you joy. Some people get joy from exercising, running, walking. I myself used to watch TV series online and uh, practice and play musical instruments a lot. So that's what because for that I knew that was my happy space. I do not need to think about anything else, just that, and just laugh and smile and have a good time. And that is key because the pressure can eventually get to you, as you said. First of all, I would say that I would like to appreciate that this is a great initiative by EduShastra, that you're providing such quality education to students for like a minimal fee, which is like not something, because in the name of CAT and GMAT coaching, there are institutes which charge you thousands and thousands of rupees without offering the standard of education that they should. So I think that EduShastra is doing really well in that regard. I would just I think that apart from preparation for CAT, that one thing that students need to be trained about is how to keep a calm mind in the exam hall, and what is the mindset that they should have in general, just to enjoy life. It's not like an exam is the end of the world, and that is what I would recommend to everybody that I meet.